Winter came down on our town the way a hand comes down on a table, flat, final, and without apology. Snow filled the streets until the ruts of wagon wheels vanished, and the wooden buildings stood like old men bracing themselves against a long remembering. I was there that winter, or maybe I've never really left it. Some seasons cling to you like smoke and wool. You don't see them anymore, but others do. People like to say the cold makes liars honest. I think it does something quieter. It shows you who is already forgotten. Mei Lin had been forgotten long before the first snow fell. She moved through town like a shadow that had learned not to expect light. Folks called her the Chinese girl, as if names were a luxury the cold had stolen from her first. When she passed, conversations bent away, like grass under a boot. Eyes slid past her face, never landing long enough to see that she was young, or tired, or human in the ways that matter. She slept in rooms that smelled of damp wood and old regrets, taking work no one wanted and gratitude no one offered. Survival had taught her the virtue of silence. It had taught her to keep her gaze lowered, her steps careful, her hope folded so small it fit between heartbeats. Across town, Caleb Holt lived with a different kind of forgetting. People knew his name. They knew his land, the stretch of white-fenced pasture that crept toward the hills like a promise half-kept. They knew he came into town once a month, bought supplies, spoke only when required, and left before dusk swallowed the road. What they didn't know was why his eyes always seemed fixed on something just beyond the present, as if he were listening for a voice that never quite arrived. Loneliness clung to him the way frost clings to iron, hard-earned, silent, and heavy. That night, the saloon glowed like a bruise against the snow. Warmth spilled out every time the door opened, carrying laughter sharp with drink and the stale sweetness of spilled whiskey. Inside, cards slapped wood, coins clinked, and men leaned into their vices like they were old friends. Mei Lin stood near the back, waiting. Waiting had become a skill. She knew how long to stand before someone noticed, and how quickly to disappear when they did. Caleb hadn't meant to stay. He never did. But winter had a way of slowing decisions, and the game had already started by the time he realized leaving would require more effort than remaining. The men at the table spoke loud, careless words, each one daring the others to be worse. Someone laughed too hard. Someone lost too much. And then, like a cruelty, no one bothered to dress up. Mei Lin was mentioned. Not by name. Never by name. She was spoken of like a thing misplaced, an inconvenience someone was tired of carrying. The words were casual, tossed like crumbs onto the table. Caleb felt something tighten in his chest, an old ache he usually kept buried beneath routine. He looked at her then. Really looked. She stood still, face composed in a way that suggested she had learned how to make herself smaller than the moment required. The hand was dealt. The cards came down. Fate, if you believe in such things, chose to be indifferent. Caleb didn't raise his voice. He didn't protest. He played the hand as it was given, every move deliberate, every breath steady. When it was over, the room went quiet in that way rooms do when no one wants to be the first to acknowledge what has happened. He had won. The word won sat wrong in the air, heavy as wet wool. A chair scraped back. Someone muttered a joke that didn't land. Mei Lin's eyes lifted just enough to meet Caleb's, and in that brief moment, something passed between them. Not hope, not yet, but recognition. He didn't smile. He didn't look away. They left together, though not side by side. Outside, the snow swallowed sound, turning the world into something hushed and waiting. Town windows watched them pass, already crafting stories that would grow sharper by morning. Mei Lin walked a step behind, boots sinking into Caleb's footprints as if testing whether they would hold her weight. The ranch sat quiet under a sky bruised purple with coming storm. Caleb unlocked the door, stepped aside, and waited. That pause mattered more than anything he could have said. Inside, the air was cold but clean, the kind of cold that promised warmth if you earned it. He showed her a room with a bed and a blanket thick enough to matter. He set food on the table, then left the space to her, retreating as if he understood that safety needs room to breathe. Mei Lin ate slowly, each bite careful, as though the meal might vanish if she trusted it too much. She listened to the sounds of the house settling, to the wind worrying the eaves. No one shouted. No one demanded. The silence was unfamiliar, and because of that, frightening in its own way. Later, when the lamp was turned low and the night pressed close, Caleb sat alone, hands wrapped around a cup gone cold. He told himself this was temporary. That winter passed, as winters always do. But some truths arrive quietly and refuse to leave. Outside, snow kept falling, covering tracks, softening edges. Inside that house, two lives rested on the same night for the first time, uncertain of what morning might ask of them. The cold had not loosened its grip. Not yet. But somewhere between the falling snow and the steady ticking of the clock, something had begun to shift, so slight it could be missed if you weren't listening for it. And winter, patient as ever, leaned in closer, curious to see what would survive. Morning arrived without ceremony. The cold stayed. It always did. But something in the house had shifted, not warmed exactly, just steadied, like a breath held long enough to become deliberate. Days followed one another with the discipline of winter chores. Wood split clean under Caleb's axe. Water froze, thawed, froze again. Mei Lin learned the shape of the ranch through repetition, the way you learn a prayer by saying it every day until it stops feeling borrowed. They spoke little. Words were tools, and neither of them wasted tools. He showed her how to feed the horses without startling them, how to move slow so fear didn't spook good intentions. She noticed how he always stepped back to give her space, how he never stood between her and a door. At night, he left an extra blanket folded near her room, never placing it on the bed himself, as if even kindness needed consent. Town learned faster than they changed. Whispers rode the wind, reached the ranch on the backs of visitors who pretended not to stare. At church, heads bent together like conspirators. The word bought clung to Mei Lin no matter how carefully she carried herself. Once, when she walked into the general store alone, conversation stopped the way a song stops when the needle lifts. She felt it then, the old instinct to shrink, to disappear into usefulness. But when she returned to the ranch that evening, Caleb did not ask where she had been. He only noticed the tightness in her shoulders and poured her a cup of tea before she thought to request it. Winter deepened. Snow climbed the fences. A storm came in fierce and fast, sealing them inside with a sky that seemed determined to press the world smaller. The fire crackled low. Mei Lin sat at the table mending a tear in his coat, fingers moving with a skill learned long before this place. Caleb watched her hands, careful not to make watching feel like claiming. When she finished, she held the coat out, not offering it so much as returning it. He took it, nodded once. That nod carried more weight than thanks. It was during that storm that the town finally knocked. Not with fists, but with words sharpened to wound. They came wrapped in concern, in righteousness, in the polite cruelty of those certain they stand on the right side of things. Caleb listened. He always did. Then he stepped aside so Mei Lin could stand beside him if she chose. The choice was small, but it was hers. She took it. Snow blew sideways across the yard, stinging faces, erasing boundaries. Caleb didn't speak louder. He didn't argue. He simply remained. When the visitors left, discomfort trailing them like smoke, something in the air cleared. After that, the days felt different. Not easier, but truer. Mei Lin began to speak more, offering thoughts the way one offers bread, carefully, with hope it will be received. She taught Caleb a word from her language that meant endurance without bitterness. He practiced it quietly, as if afraid of breaking it. When he finally said it right, her smile surprised them both. Spring did not announce itself. It never does. It arrived the way trust does, incrementally, almost shy. Snow receded from the fence posts. Mud claimed the road. Maylin walked beside Caleb now, not behind, her stride finding its own rhythm. In town, eyes still watched, but some looked away first. Others softened. Change, like winter, takes its time. One evening, as the sun bled gold into the hills, Maylin stopped at the edge of the pasture. She could leave. The road was open. The world, wide and uncertain, waited. Caleb knew it too. He did not ask her to stay. He did not look at her at all. He fixed a loose board on the fence, hands steady, giving her the dignity of a decision unobserved. She stayed. Not because she had been won or saved, or softened into belonging, but because she had been seen without being owned. Because in the quiet accumulation of days, respect had grown roots. Because winter had taught them both that survival is easier when it is shared, and love, real love, is built from small, consistent mercies. If you're listening to this now, carry this with you. Dignity can be restored. Kindness does not need witnesses. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stand beside someone and say nothing at all. If stories like this still find a place in you, stay with us. Subscribe to Wild West Tales and walk a little longer through the quiet places where hope learns how to last.